ecosystem in Russia, startup ecosystem was mostly like yours in Uzbekistan. So I kind of understand the problems which most of startup founders are facing, and this is because this is why I do these courses. I run these channels, Press VC, Ask VC, please subscribe. And I also lived 2 years in Uzbekistan, so I've participated in various events and talked to the founders. So today I wanted to give feedback, to answer to the questions about the fundraising, about startups, etc., which are specifically relevant to the startup founders from Uzbekistan and from CIS region. So that to better address your pains. Um, yeah. And a couple of words about IEEF. So this is a US fund which is 19 years on the market. We invested in more than 140 companies. It's 90% of them are in the United States. We have public companies which cost billions of dollars, which valued billions of dollars, which we have exits. We have investments with top-notch investors like Sequoia, Bessemer, Andreessen Horowitz, and others. So we're kind of seen the best practices from the Silicon Valley and across the United States, from the companies building various solutions. And we specifically invest mostly in B2B software solutions for legacy, traditional, or dated industries like construction, manufacturing, logistics, etc., etc. For example, I know there are a lot of companies which are in the trucking business in Uzbekistan, so we have some investments in this field as well. So this is like a quick introduction of myself, and Layla, how we structure the dialogue during this session.
Uh, okay, so usually our attendees, audience, they ask questions after the pitch, after the presentation, and it's like discussion in the form of discussion.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't do specific slides today. I would better prefer to talk to make like 5 to 10 minutes intro about the problems which I observed, and specifics of the market, and specifics of the problems which Uzbek startup founders could face. And then we will open a Q&A session. And I see that Nurbek wants to ask a question. Should we let him ask it, or should we wait for till the Q&A session?
Okay, so I gave him microphone. Norbek?
He's off.
Okay, so you can continue. Thank you.
Yeah. Nurbek, do you have a specific question before we start? You can speak. Okay. Um, so, from my experience working in living in Uzbekistan and talking to many startup founders, what I've seen that because of historical aspects, most of the very many startups, first of all, are done by very young people, like aged 18 to 22, and most of the startups are done for the local Uzbek market. And the specifics of the Uzbek market is that if you look at the given niches, especially when we talk about some B2B niches, so solutions for pharmacy, for example, like Arzona Apteka. Yeah.
Yes.
So I give it just as an example. When you calculate the market size of this given market, um, it ends up like the size of the market is $1 million, $5 million, $10 million. So it could be a pretty good small business for an entrepreneur in Uzbekistan. But if we talk about investments from venture capital, this is a very slow market. And this is what many entrepreneurs don't understand. And they try to raise funding, but unfortunately they can't, just because they operate only on the local market. So this is the first, like I would say, the most popular reason why founders can't raise money in Uzbekistan. Then some of the entrepreneurs have participated in sessions, for example, like this one, and they heard that investors are uh, are looking for entrepreneurs which are doing businesses on the big markets. And they say another thing. Yes, we start our business right now in Uzbekistan, but like in a year or in 2 years, when we do a good traction on the Uzbek market, we will try we will start we will start building businesses on some other markets. For example, many say I would expand to Dubai because it's natural. Because many people in Uzbekistan travel to Dubai or dream to travel to Dubai and believe that this is a good location. And the problem with this, there are two problems with this strategy, both on the business and fundraising side. First of all, when you look at the market of the UAE, it's also very small. So if you want to address the MENA market, I would strongly encourage you to look into Saudi Arabia because the market is bigger and has more problems. But the other problem is that, especially when we talk about the B2B businesses, the business processes and the requirements to the software which you develop for those back market could be significantly different from what you need on the other markets. And I'm not just speaking this theoretically. For 10 years, I also worked in Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan with Kazakh founders, and they are a little bit ahead in terms of developing their ecosystem, but experienced exactly the same problem. And for example, we had one investment in a company which was doing a B2B solution for HR in Kazakhstan. They expanded their solution to Russia. It was in 2000, in 2020 or in 2019. And then they wanted to expand their solution to the United States. And they were accepted in one of the top accelerators, US accelerators, Alchemist. And for 6 months, they tried to monetize their solution in the United States, but they early figured out that the business processes on the US market was totally different from what from what entrepreneurs from what they did in the Russian and Kazakh market, and they had to rebuild the product from scratch. So this is a tricky question, and the big risk when you start doing something purely local and then want to expand this to the other markets, especially when we talk about the B2B, because the B2B when you sell solutions to corporations or small businesses, they are typically more sophisticated. They are typically have more integrations, like they have more integrations for some business processes, and it leads to the problem that you can face the problem exactly the same with the case of our Kazakh company. And what happened in this case, unfortunately, the company spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to achieve success on the U.S. market, and then they shut down the U.S. market entirely and built the business in Russia and Kazakhstan and sold the company for several millions of dollars. This is, of course, it's great that they sold the company, but unfortunately, it's not the type of the exit entrepreneurs would like to see. Venture capitalists and business angels would like to see in the Asian region. And I talked to many investors in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. They would like to invest in companies which are starting their first steps on some big markets, and you should account this for when you raise funding, when you talk to investors, and you should understand like why they are requiring this, because all of those investors have previous histories investing in local solutions, and those local solutions didn't work out. So this is why this requirement is mandatory. And another big thing you need to understand, that in general, this is the rule across the globe. Investors invest in the startups in the regions which they understand. For example, Uzbek investors first start investing in Uzbek founders and then looking somewhere else. So if you, for example, want to raise money from investors from Europe, they understand nothing about business practices specifics of the Uzbek market. So they will start considering you and it will probably take you from 6 to 8 months to 12 months until they will be open to invest in you. After you started selling on their local markets. For example, you're talking to an investor from Germany, they would prefer you doing business in Germany. And why I'm saying it, one of the common mistakes and reasons why it's hard to raise funding for entrepreneurs, that they have Uzbek traction and they try to raise money from, try to attack some investors outside Uzbekistan. It could work, for example, with the Kazakh and with some investors from the former CIS region, but with the other region, especially the Western world, it works pretty poorly. And this is why I typically advise entrepreneurs to get traction first, or to apply to some good high quality accelerators. For example, you have Plug and Play in Uzbekistan, you have 500 Global in Georgia, you have some other international programs, so that you improve your chances in succeeding in business and in succeeding in fundraising. And when it comes to when you do local business in Uzbekistan, in most of the cases, you can raise funding from the Uzbek funds, and you all know their names, and they are doing great job for developing the local ecosystem. And I talked to many of them many times, but the problem is that they are very few. There are less than 10 funds operating on the Uzbek market, which actively invest. So for you as entrepreneurs, it means you are very limited in terms of the number of the funds which could invest in you. So this is one of the local problems of the ecosystem. And I hope it's better, and it's in the statistics, it's becoming better and better every year. And so far as I saw, the last year there was about $17 million invested in Uzbekistan. This is a tremendous number, but still this is small compared, for example, to Kazakhstan, which is like several times more, and far more than in many other even smaller countries like Spain or Portugal, etc. So these are the main points I wanted to to mention today, and I would be happy to answer to your questions.
Okay, thank you so much. So you said that you have been living in Uzbekistan for about 2 years, yeah? Okay, so now I think you can analyze, how would you describe the current state of Uzbekistan's startup ecosystem? What sectors are leading and what sectors should be developed?
So I would say the following. So when I arrived in Uzbekistan, the ecosystem just started. There were just a few funds, a few companies which raised funding, and there were a few funds like Aloka Ventures, for example, which were, at the very beginning of their active investment phase, and there were a couple of deals. So over the 2 years which I lived in Uzbekistan, I've seen the funds making a really good job of scouting and finding most of the top startup founders and the teams. And I believe that they found most of the teams which could raise funding. And what I've seen and what I've heard in the conversations is that the local funds they have more capital than that they can deploy, but they can't identify enough products with startups with high quality traction teams, etc., to invest in yet another company. The other thing which I liked, and this is probably because of not probably one. These are the initiatives which government in general is taking. Incorporating and launching global accelerator like Plug and Play is a really good sign in both bringing new expertise to the market and bringing new capital, etc. And actually showing Uzbekistan on the global venture capital map. So if you have an acceleration program of high quality accelerator in Uzbekistan, so more people pay attention, at least a little bit. So this is a really great development. Also the great development which happened, and I see also more and the president award which you do annually is also a good initiative which is happening right now. But definitely there is a very long way to educate entrepreneurs, to involve more experienced entrepreneurs, which typically think that, I'm a businessman. Startups are for young, for students, but it's totally wrong. Startup is for experienced entrepreneurs. We need more effort into helping the entrepreneurs build an international business, helping more into educating entrepreneurs about the basics and specifics of how the startup ecosystem is done. And definitely you will need more effort in building business angel communities, private venture communities, etc. So that's what I see. But my impression is that so far the ecosystem did a really great move forward.
Okay, thank you. So, as you know, there are a small number of startups which scale to international markets. And how can a startup increase its valuation before the funding rounds, or what investors expect from startups, for example, from Uzbek startups, if they want to go to the international markets, to international venture companies?
So first of all, and for example, I'm doing this with one of the Kazakh founders. First of all, you need to do a desk research, understanding what big market you could address with your solution outside the Uzbekistan. So, and look at big markets, for example, Brazil, United States, United Kingdom, Germany, France, those big, or if you talk about if you talk about Asia, probably expanded to Indonesia and Vietnam, the biggest markets. So first, you need to address the big market, start addressing the big market. Then I would leverage your diaspora community when possible, talking to people which live in those countries where you want to build business, and start talking to potential clients in those regions, trying probably even finding a co-founder or a mentor from those geographies which you're interested in. And I know some cases, for example, pretty many people from Uzbekistan immigrate to United Kingdom and in the United States probably first of all for educational reasons, but some of them stay doing working there, some of them working in good companies, and you kind of can leverage this mix of build mixed teams. If you don't have such a co-founder or mentor, then definitely you need to start traveling to those countries where you want to do business. And there are pretty good opportunities. For example, there are some international programs. For example, Astana Hub in Kazakhstan, they're doing a digital embassy for startups in Silicon Valley. So kind of in those emerging countries, you can find some ways of starting this traveling and visiting and gathering information in those regions. The other thing, and the closer you are to sales, the better. So this is what I typically recommend. And then you can also apply with your product and with this mindset of building an international company, with doing this desktop research at the public information in the internet. You can apply to some good accelerators, international accelerators like Y Combinator, Techstars, or some local accelerators as like Plug and Play or 500 Global in Georgia, or apply to such specific accelerators in Saudi Arabia. I've seen that there are quite a few programs which are addressing Central Asian startups there. Or there is a good accelerator in the UAE called Hub 71. This is the accelerator in Abu Dhabi, so far as I remember, which is done by by the royal family. So this is a good entry point for startup founders. So these are the things which I would do, and which I typically recommend to founders with which I work. For example, I have one startup founder in computer vision out of Uzbekistan, and I'm pushing the team exactly in this direction. Yeah, we will see how it progresses, but yeah, I'm constantly pushing, typically pushing entrepreneurs into this direction. And the last point I want to say, I know that this is really important for people in Uzbekistan because you have very tight relationships within your families. It doesn't mean if you're doing an international business, it doesn't mean that you like abort your country and developing business on some other countries, because typically what you do is you generate revenue in some region, but you can leverage cost cutting, keeping the local teams and developing local communities. For example, you have like R&D team in Tashkent or in Samarkand or in some like in Fergana, and earning revenue abroad. Yeah, this is possible, and this is actually reasonable because, for example, IT Park has a very good terms and taxation for IT companies. So if you have a back office in or develop R&D office in Uzbekistan, like it's a no-brainer for such companies.
Okay, so how do you see how effective are government initiatives like such IT Park in fostering startups? How do you see it?
Yeah, listen, in any country, believe me, you'd better having private initiatives, not government initiatives, to develop the ecosystem. This is the common rule in any country. For example, I'm now in Spain, in Barcelona, and they have a lot of government accelerators. I'm pretty sure they have more or less the same efficiency as they have in Uzbekistan. So consider it that this is great that the government is doing this job, and at least hiring Plug and Play and launching and giving as an LP for LP money for many VCs which operate on your local market, and establishing UZVC, like this is actually better than some countries, emerging countries do. So I wouldn't underestimate this effort. But of course, as with any government-related entities and bodies, you can always find ways for improvement and for critics. But I am pretty sure that, especially I know many people which work in IT Park and in those ecosystem. They are like mission-driven people. They're doing their best. So this is what how I would summarize it.
Can you explain more the negative consequences of government's initiatives?
So,
Yeah.
as any government, I wouldn't say negative. But first of all, typically when funds invest in startups with government funding, they are a little bit risk averse. So they want you to have more revenue, and they are like less open to taking immense risk. While when this is private money, business angel invests, loses money, they don't report. But it's not because the governments are bad. It's just because of how governments typically work. So and it's not unique for Uzbekistan. It's pretty much the same happening in many other countries. For example, if you compare United States versus Europe, in Europe there are many funds which are government-backed funds, and they are also more risk averse than the U.S. funds, which are typically backed by private initiatives and funds of funds. So funds in the Silicon Valley can take the risk which even in New York funds wouldn't take. Did I answer the question?
Thank you. So we have here Davron Bekparmonov, venture investor from Uzbekistan, and someone wanted to speak to ask question. Abdulaziz Husanov, yes?
Good evening, Denis. I hope you're doing well. So my name is Abdulaziz. I'm 20 years old. I'm co-founder and CEO of Akam, a tech startup. We have monthly users of 60K monthly users, and now we are looking for an investment. And what you advise, venture funds or angel investors? And can you tell the difference between them?
So first, I will explain the difference between venture funds and angel investors. So angel investors are actually private individuals who write checks, and on one hand, their decision making is faster than for the funds because funds typically do those investment committees and write investment memos, etc., etc. And this is what you have great working with business angels. But the backside of this, especially in the Central Asia, most of the business angels, they are less professional in terms. So typically, these are the people which made build businesses on the bootstrap, and they are more cautious about how you spend your money, and none of them understand the specifics of how venture capital works. So in this stance, venture capitalists, professional funds like Loka Ventures, for example, they will be operating more professional in terms of decision making, but the procedures of making the decision is more formalized with investment committees, approvals, etc. And the last piece of advice, actually, you don't have many business angels in Uzbekistan. Like I know very few investor groups and individual angels, and most of the people in Uzbekistan which I met, they are more focused on investing in private equity in businesses like doing some import-export, trading something. Because those businesses actually provide very good dividends, and not all of them don't just want to invest in business angels as business angels just because they get pretty good returns from less risky businesses. Yeah. So So that's what I say. Yeah, about the difference between the two.
Yeah, the thing is that we are looking for a 50K investment, and what do you recommend for us?
So
Like
50K, 50K. The question is, do you really have any revenue now, or you are looking for 50K for making your, MVP?
we already have a revenue, so we have an application, a website. Our application was downloaded more than 180,000 times on Play Market, and we have MRR $500 for now. So our startup was started in 2022, so it was completely free. And recently we added subscription and classified ads. So we are just putting the revenue side, and we need.
So
Mhm.
So first of all, the traction about several 100,000 subscribers is really great, but it's too bad that you've been doing it for more than 2 years and you just recently switched on the monetization. So because like in general it doesn't look really cool, so that it took you so long to start monetizing. I would prefer, like if I were you, I would wait for several more months and reach, I don't know, like 5,000 in monthly revenue, and then started the fundraising, because then it looks more solid. Yeah, and from the point of view, like would you go after the venture capitalists or business angels? I actually believe you need to do both, because in Uzbekistan, both venture capitalists and business angels can invest in more or less the same round. But it's hard for me to assume that given the traction of $500 a month, it would be easy to persuade them to invest to invest right now. I would start reaching out to them and saying, hey, look, there is immense traction we have, and we have a plan of reaching its reaching $4,000, like for example in June when we opened the round. So this is what I would do, because on one hand you need to start contacting with funds before you raise money, and then do the update emails, sending them on a monthly basis, for example, information about your progress, and they will gradually become more accustomed with your company and see your progress. And if you're like deliver what you promise month over month, they will be more comfortable with closing the deal with you. So that's what would I do if I were you.
Sure, you're advising me to increase revenue to like a minimum, I don't know, like 1,000 a month. And
I would say like 2 to 5,000 would be better.
Got it.
But given your like immense database of users and uploads, I don't know your unit economics, but it sounds like doable in a couple of months, because you have already a big database.
Yeah, the thing is that we have added premium subscription for B2C like a month ago, and we are adding the B2B education advertising to our platform. So we recently added, it was just a side startup for our IT company, and we didn't focus that much, but we saw that a lot of users are using, and that's why we are focusing a little bit to this startup.
Since this is was a side project, so one thing you also need to do is to have a dedicated team, like the CEO who has a pretty big share, like 30-40%, some CTO. So you need to do it like separately, because they wouldn't investors wouldn't invest in in the collaborative companies which is having the product, but instead do it spin-off, and do it as a separate business with a dedicated person who is working on day and night to bring this business to success.
Yeah, it's me. Like I'm the co-founder and CEO, and I'm working. Thanks for the advice.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. So Denise, we have more questions in our chat. So the first one is, what common mistakes should startups at the MVP stage avoid when pitching to investors?
So first of all, it's at MVP stage, it's really hard to pitch to investors, just because when you don't have any users, you probably can be doing wrong with your business. The common mistake, especially for tech entrepreneurs, which happened with them, they imagine some product which seems to be cool and seems to be valuable, and they start developing code because this is what they are good at, and they build a product, and sometimes they could build it for 6 or 10 months before they even start talking and providing live live product or better version for real customers. And then they can find themselves in a position when they develop something which is totally useless for users. So I would urge you to start from developing this is in the stealth mode. Start from developing and testing it on real pro users as early as possible. And the other thing which I would avoid is from expensively leveraging and providing the solution for free. Because I've seen companies which had millions in users, in monthly users, and they turned the paid subscription for a couple of dollars a month, and the conversion was like a disaster, like less than 1%. So people who are using something for free, in most of the case, don't want to use to pay for the product. So the earlier you start, from monetization, the better. When talking about the investor, talking to investors, before you do any startup, first, check your market size, the total addressable market. Check the trends, and try to answer to the question to yourself, why this company couldn't be launched 5 or 3 years ago, and why now the situation on the market changed. And in most of the cases, it's not because the technology changed, but this is mostly because some business trends changed. Try to identify what's happening in the market right now, why it's driving this adoption. And the third question try to answer is, okay, if I'm doing this and if I'm successful, someone will see that I'm successful and will make a copy of my product, and ask yourself a question, why is your product, like, where is the barrier to entry? Why is not like the product which you could copy overnight? Like where the barrier to entry lies? Because if everyone can do easily what you do, then they will. And I've seen, if the situation is like that, it means that the only competitive advantage you have is the amount of money that you raise, and then you do dumping on the market. And especially when you work on the international money, international markets, uh, you as a person from Uzbekistan, it will be harder for you to raise funding than, for example, German doing business on the German market. So if you try compete to the locals, and if the only reason how you could succeed is getting more funding, then you can't win in this. It will be extremely hard for you to win in this game. So you need to do something where you understand that you have some competitive edge, which is not easy to copy to your competitors. This is which will protect your business. And the last but not the least, remember that at the stage, at the MVP stage and at pre-seed stage, when you have a couple of thousands of dollars, investor invests in a team. So this is you haven't proved your business model yet. You haven't proven your metrics yet. So they invest in you and show show your show like the strengths of your teams. Show why you are the best team to do the job. And I know that it's not like in the mentality of Uzbek people to brag a bit, But this is the case when you need to brag a bit, because otherwise it will be extremely hard to raise funding.
Thank you so much. And Musabik is asking, considering the current venture ecosystem in Central Asia, at what stage is most effective for startups to approach venture capital funds? So this is the next question. Denis.
So, as I said, like probably Davron Beck will correct me, but so you can start talking early, but my perception is that you to raise funding you need like about $4,000-5,000 in monthly revenue minimum. So if you're like for $500 a month, mm, it would be tough to raise money. There is only one exception. For example, you're an experienced entrepreneur. You've built like a previous business. For example, you have those companies like Click, PayMe, PayNet, and others, which are like local successes. And if you're the co-founder or C-level manager of such companies, and you say, yes, I have broad experience, and now I'm doing an international business. Probably the requirements for you in this case will be lower, so you can approach even before revenue. But I'm pretty sure that most of the people which are listening to us do not belong to this category, and for them the requirements will be like more or less the same which I described previously.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Denis, you pointed out that how to say negative sides of living in Central Asia and making startups, but are there any advantages so startup founders can follow and
Yes, there are actually many. So first of all, Uzbekistan is a pretty cheap geography to live compared to some other countries. So you can especially given that for the last couple of years there was a pretty significant immigration from Russia and pretty good talent circulate across all Central Asia or work for local companies like Yandex or Tinkoff and others. So this is a luxury when you can hire or find talent or mentors with pretty high quality skills, which are for whatever reason they ended up living in Uzbekistan. And what I also want to point out, from my point of view, I really loved Tashkent. It's a pretty good balance for life, and I see that many even like Russian companies, what they do is they both open offices, for example, in Spain or in the United Kingdom, and hire like more talented, more like more pricey personnel there. But they also hold another a local office in Tashkent, in Astana, in Yerevan. So this is what has been developing so far. So it means that you can save some money and you can find some capital, some talents which you could hire or you could take as an advisor when building your international business. The other advantage is, as I said, really good taxation. So really good taxation, especially when you're a resident in IT Park. Believe me, these are really good terms. And you can save a lot of money. And for example, I have teams, for example, not only startups, but also just doing IT businesses. They have headquarters in Spain, and they have some like back office in Tashkent. So this is actually your competitive advantage. Yeah, and the other thing which you, especially for Uzbek citizens, which you could leverage is actually your pretty big diaspora, which like for the last 40 years have been formed in many countries and working for many working for many companies and people with good education. And I know that I compare it to like the diaspora of Russian and Belarusians, you have a pretty like your diaspora is stronger, so it means that you can find more people in the industries which in the places which you are looking for, or like in the other countries where you want to run business.
Okay, great, thank you. So are there specific industries where investors are more willing to fund startups?
Uh,
Introduce me. Mhm.
are we talking about investors globally or in Uzbekistan?
Let's talk globally.
Globally, of course, the biggest trend is AI, LLM models, and those AI agents and digital workers, some sort of digitalization. Um, Investors prefer to invest in B2B businesses versus B2C, and this actually happened a decade ago. Because when I started working in venture capital, it was like pretty common to invest in B2C businesses. But then we ended up in the situation when very few people in developed world have very few people have a lot of disposable capital. So it's not easy to get a check from a person. And for the last decade, what have been happening is more and more startup founders started doing B2B businesses. First of all, when you're doing B2B business, entrepreneur, your clients, they calculate revenue. They use your product, whatever you do, for improving their businesses, growing their revenue. So they understand better value which they get versus people, and they are open to pay you more. For example, I've seen a company. It was a decade ago when they started selling those web cameras, web camera solution for B2C, and then they started to sell exactly the same cameras. Nothing changed to the retail shops, and they increased their checks twice, just because they sold it to B2B, and B2B understood like what value they get from what metrics from those cameras, and what metrics do they track, what metrics do they want to improve. Yeah, so that's a kind of general recommendation. And of course, investors prefer to invest in asset light businesses. So they prefer in any situation, if you don't have your hardware, but instead build only software business, they will prefer invest in software businesses. And of course, the question they ask, like how big is the market opportunity and how fast you can scale your sales. So if you're, for example, doing a product which requires a significant system integration, the investors would avoid such solutions. Versus if you are doing a solution which is like easily to scale through like influencer marketing, content marketing, targeting in Google or others, they would prefer such businesses. Did I answer to your question?
Yeah, I think so. And I'd like to ask about, so a lot of Uzbek startups, they are copy pasting global startups. And what can you say about it?
This is actually a great model. And for example, in Brazil, which is the biggest market for software startups in Latin America, there are very many successful stories when people do a copycat of the U.S. company and becoming successful. For example, one of the biggest successes is Pipedrive. So they did a copycat of Salesforce, but for Latin American market, and the company costs billions of dollars. But you need to understand that sometimes it's not possible to do a copycat, or the local market for the copycat business model is really small, or you need to do a significant adjustment of the business model. You can't just copy everything because there is some specifics. And the last but not the least, what you need to remember, you don't necessarily need to do a copycat to the Uzbek market. you can do a copycat to a big market like Indonesia, for example. But in general, there are shortages and there are some privileges with regards to the copycat business model. One of the biggest privileges that someone in the one part of the world has already, tried many things and spent like millions of dollars on marketing and product management and developing the product to understand what's working and what's not. And you're kind of leveraging, you kind of bypassing all these problems and copying the best practices which is already working on the other market which doesn't have such a good solution for this specific market.
Okay, thank you so much. Kimdadir savol bo'lsa, bersangiz bo'ladi.
Hi, Denis. Nice to hear your voice. Denis, I've just seen your tracking program in Ask VCUs. Can you give more information about this tracking program? And now everything is changing in our ecosystem, and more tracking specials are needed. Maybe it will be interesting.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So yes, as I said, I accept more people to the tracking program. It's a paid program. It's not like immensely like pricey, but what we do, I take like 5, maybe 7 founders, up to 10 founders. We have a small group, and on a weekly basis, I do a call with each of you, and each of the team members have each of the team has 30 minutes each month, each week. And we, first of all, we make a diagnostics, what's wrong with your business, and how we can change it. And then we set goals for the month, we set goals for the week. Then we agree, me and you both agree what you're doing during the next week to improve something in your business, like talking to clients, getting feedback, trying new marketing or sales channel, doing something else, see the results, discuss what worked and what didn't, and then we iterate. And actually, I've had 4 or 5 founders from Uzbekistan participating in it, and one of them is actually like in the process right now. And I'm doing it because I understand that especially for emerging countries, it's really important so that you keep a track and have some a mentor by your side who is challenging your assumptions, who is pushing you to do something, and this is the way how you get to the progress faster. And I'd be happy to help. I will send to the group the description, to Layla the description, and please, I'd be happy to help.
Okay, great. We'll share.
Are you missing Tashkent?
Yeah. Actually, I plan to visit this year. Especially, I love Tashkent during the summertime. Really enjoyed it. While many say that it's too hot in Tashkent, like everyone's dying, but not for me. I really enjoyed June, July, and even August. And and what I like about Tashkent is really good infrastructure in terms of parks, squares, a lot of good restaurants and places for kids, especially which was really important for my daughter. Yeah, so I love Tashkent. Yeah, you have your wife.
Yeah, everything's changed after the last meeting with you. I think it was fall and September. I think we business practice done with business community, and now everything's changed from the October. We release a new law. Now there are so many corporate VCs, and the government wants to increase venture investment per capita. Yesterday, the president talked about it. Yeah, if you want to visit, we will be ready to offer some your advisory and some kind of programs. Yeah, nice to see you.
That would be great to discuss. Always happy to visit. I'm planning to visit this year, so let's talk about it offline and like in the chat. And
Yeah, and interesting for me that how this Spain ecosystem, how difference of Spain ecosystem, how this growing? Is it possibility to enter some of our startup to this
Yes,
market?
definitely is possible to enter. So what's happening in Spain? They actually have more capital than they so government invests immensely. So there is like 1,000 companies invested every year. In terms of the business angel investors, they are the fourth biggest market in continental Europe. So pretty big result. They have many government-backed funds, and those funds they are focused on. They're focused on startups which are incorporated in Spain. They could operate globally, but they're incorporated in Spain, and those funds have the mandate to invest in such companies. They also have a shortage of like very motivated people, so they are obliged to invest in less, in less sophisticated and less strong startups. But they are looking for good entrepreneurs. And yeah, there are ways how to get to Spain. They have a really good startup visas, and by the way, my friend is helping out to to do such startup visas, write business plan, apply, get visas, etc., etc. So this is totally possible. There are some ups and downs. There are a lot of accelerators. Some of them are good. Some of them are really small. But yeah, this is possible, more than possible, I would say so. And the other thing which I believe people from Tashkent would actually they have a pretty big diaspora here. I was invited to Plov once when I arrived. So yeah, so that there are under the good climate, you will after Uzbekistan you will feel like you're home. It's like, yeah.
Good. What's your plans, Denis, for the next 2 years?
I plan first. The first thing what I'm doing is I expanding Ask VC, and this is one of the reasons I'm launching this webinar, doing this webinar today. So what I want to do is we want to do a disruption of the business model of traditional accelerators, because accelerator is only you come here to participate in a 3 month program, then a demo day, and you're done. And you need to give a share upfront before you really understand what value you get from accelerator. So what we at AskVC want to do is we want to decompose the value which founders need and provide value on a wider spectrum of stages. For example, you don't have an idea for a startup, want to find it. I have a product which can help you identify the right idea. If you're like starting, if you're pre-revenue but you're failing, I have another product which help you to fix and be ready for getting to accelerator. If you graduated from accelerator and didn't succeed in rising funding, for example, or didn't succeed in rising funding or stuck and need to make a pivot, I can provide some tools which can help you here. And what we want to do is we want to look at the whole lifetime of the startup, from the idea and finding a co-founder through that all the way down to IPO and M&A, and provide services which are relevant to at those stages. And you pay for the services which you need at the moment. And if you don't need the service at the moment, you can go and return whenever you need it again. For example, I had one founder who participated in this tracking group. Like over the months, we did a pivot in what he's doing. He understood. I introduced him to several investors to understand like what he need to do next. He pivoted and did pre-sales of the product, and then he said like, okay, now I need 4 or 5 months to build, and then I'll return. So this is what's my vision for what we're going to build in Ask VC. And the other thing which I'm looking at is I believe that you can thrive when you collaborate with the ecosystem players, with other ecosystem players. So, for example, some of startups we work with, they apply to Y Combinator 500 Global and others, and we strongly encourage them, if we see this instrument is relevant for them, help them with getting ready for the interview, etc. Yeah, so kind of navigating them at any point of time to what they really need at this point to succeed. So that's what we're planning to do in the next 2 months, 2 years. Yeah, that's what we're working on.
Thank you.
Thank you all for inviting me. Unfortunately, I have another meeting coming and I need to run. It was a really pleasure talking to you. Lila, I will send you a couple of links I've mentioned. I would be happy if you can share it in your profile. Yeah, and I'd be happy to help any of you. And the last thing I want everyone to hear is that you already done well. Like you already ventured to build a business. This is great. You're already like in 1%, a couple of percent of the population. Just keep moving, learning, iterating, dreaming, and I hope everyone sooner or later will succeed. So thank you everyone for
Thank you so
joining
much.
us.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you,
What you are
Denis.
doing has startup ecosystem. Thank you.
Bye
Yeah.
bye. Bye bye.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
I will send you link. I will upload to YouTube. Okay. Rahmat hammaga qatnashganlarga. Salomat bo'linglar. YouTubega yuklab qo'yamiz. Savol bo'lsa, kommentariy qoldirsanglar bo'ladi.